They came from the edge of the Andromeda Rift. Tall, cold, efficient. The Zarkari Empire didn't make contact. They didn't ask. They didn't warn. They simply arrived. 13 warships appeared in Earth's orbit in less than a minute. No lights, no sound. The skies over the Pacific shimmered briefly. Satellites stopped responding. Then the first ship dropped into the atmosphere, like a blade sliding through water across the world. Panic began. But governments didn't even have time to react. The invasion was designed to be instant. Paralyze. Capture. Control. That was the Zarkari way. They had done it to over 200 planets. Earth was just number 201. But Earth was different. The Zarkari didn't know it yet, but this planet wasn't sleeping. It was watching, and it had been waiting in a hidden command bunker under Greenland. Commander Alina Cross activated Protocol Blackwake. Every major power received the same encrypted message. This is not a drill. Initiate Phase 1. No presidents, no voting, no debates. The world went dark. In London, power grids shut off by design. In Tokyo, a hidden satellite launched silently. In New Mexico, an old missile silo opened, revealing something that wasn't a missile. It was a signal amplifier, one designed not to broadcast to space, but beneath the crust of Earth itself. Because humanity had learned something the Zarkari never even considered. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is what you hide from your enemy, and Earth was full of secrets. On board the lead Zarkari ship, High Strategist Theron watched Earth's surface through a holographic interface. No resistance, he noted. Primitive. Infrastructure. Low defense response. Begin harvesting operation. Scout pods dropped like thunder. Dozens of them landed in cities, deserts, forests, scanning life forms, analyzing weapons, collecting data. But something was wrong. Each pod went dark, one by one. No explosion, no warning, just silence. Theron frowned. Send armed units. He didn't understand what was happening, but Earth did, across the planet. Humans activated systems, never made public. Exo-suits, cloaking fields, railguns. Even AI interceptors, all built in secret programs, buried under budget files and false corporations, and the people. They didn't run, they didn't cry. They fought back, but not with chaos, with precision, from slums to skyscrapers. Humans moved, like shadows. Small teams, no open battle. They had studied invasion tactics and turned them inside out. The Zarkari expected lasers and armies instead. They faced ambushes in tunnels, EMP strikes from rooftops, drones launched from moving trains, and even children using hacked school tablets to blind Zarkari sensors. Theron watched, confused. These are not civilians, he said. His science officer replied. Their genetics show no enhancement. Their tech is scattered and primitive by comparison. He paused, but they know how to use it. The invasion began to fail. Zarkari forces couldn't adapt fast enough. Their strength, central control, became their weakness. Earth's strength was decentralized chaos. And every human had one thing in common. They didn't care about victory. They only cared about making the enemy bleed. In an abandoned warehouse in Chicago, a single teenager crawled through rubble with a stolen Zarkari rifle. He'd never held a real weapon before, but he didn't hesitate. He didn't run. He aimed at the scanner drone hovering above him and shot it clean out of the sky, then moved on across the galaxy. Empires watching the invasion paused. This was supposed to be an example, a lesson for others. Instead, it became a warning. Earth was not a farm to be harvested. It was a jungle. And in jungles, even small creatures can kill giants. In orbit, Theron made one final call. Retreat, now. But it was too late. As the Zarkari fleet tried to jump away, Earth revealed its last secret. From deep inside the oceans, 3 human vessels emerged. Massive, black, silent, not built for space, built for ambush. Each one launched a gravity spike, not a weapon, but a trap. The Zarkari ships were pulled down, not destroyed, but captured. They had come to conquer. They left as prisoners, back on Earth. Commander Alina Cross stood over the control panel, her voice calm, sharp. Let this be remembered. We didn't start this war, but we ended it. No speeches, no celebration. The world simply went back to rebuilding quietly, because humanity knew something the galaxy was just learning. Being underestimated is the greatest advantage of all. And Earth had been underestimated for the last time. Asterisk, they didn't come in peace. They didn't send a message, or ask for a meeting. They just arrived like a shadow falling over Earth. The sky broke open above the Pacific Ocean. A fleet of dark alien ships entered the atmosphere without warning. 13 ships, large, cold, and quiet. People looked up. Planes stopped. Power grids flickered. Satellites went silent. And then they began to land. They were called the Zarkari. A race from deep space. Silent, fast, always watching. They had done this before, to other worlds. Worlds with no warning, no defense. No second chances. Earth was next, but Earth was not like the others. The Zarkari expected confusion, fear, screaming. They saw none of it, in fact. They saw something else. The world went dark, by choice. Across cities, lights went out. Airports stopped. Highways froze. But it wasn't panic. It was preparation. In Greenland, deep underground, Commander Alina Cross activated Protocol Blackwake. A signal moved through secret military networks, bouncing across continents in less than 10 minutes. Humans all over the planet were ready. Not just soldiers, everyone. Miners, by farmers, teenagers, scientists, people who had never held a gun, but who knew what to do. They weren't trained to fight in space wars, but they knew Earth, and they knew how to survive. The Zarkari landed scout pods in cities, in forests, on school playgrounds. They scanned everything: power levels, human activity, technology. Then, one by one, their scout pods went dark. No sounds, no explosions, just gone. The lead Zarkari ship opened a secure channel. There is no resistance. One of them said, "Yet we are being attacked." The commander frowned. This world is not organized. Its weapons are old. How are we losing? Because the Zarkari didn't understand Earth. Not really. They saw weak signals, scattered forces, a broken planet full of noise. But behind the noise was intention. Earth wasn't disorganized. It was layered, all over the planet, small human. Teams launched attacks the aliens couldn't predict. They didn't use advanced weapons, just smart ones. A simple EMP took down a Zarkari drone in Mumbai. A teenager hacked an alien scanner using a school laptop in Mexico City. In the forests of Canada, a farmer used a broken satellite dish to jam the Zarkari's landing system. The aliens were confused. They had numbers. They had power. But humans had something stronger: experience, imagination, and no rules. In space, the Zarkari ships tried to call for backup. They couldn't. Something was blocking them. In a mountain in Norway, a hidden base was using old, cold war tech to scramble alien signals. Earth wasn't just defending itself, it was fighting without being seen. One alien officer finally spoke up. "They're not military." "Then what are they?" the commander asked. The officer paused. "They're everything." Back on Earth, Alina Cross looked at the map. Her voice was calm. "They thought we'd panic," she said. "They thought we'd break." She looked around the room. "They don't know us." In orbit, the alien fleet prepared to leave. They had lost too many scouts, too much time, but Earth wasn't finished. As the ships began their jump sequence, something unexpected happened. The ocean moved. From deep below the Pacific, 3 black shapes rose, massive, silent, unmarked old human weapons, never tested, never even admitted to exist. They weren't meant for space, but now they were ready. Each one fired a single pulse, not a bomb, a gravity net. The alien ships froze, caught in invisible fields, dragged back toward Earth's orbit. The fleet was stuck. The Zarkari commander screamed, "This planet is not what we were told." No one answered back on the ground. Humans watched from rooftops, hills, and highways. There were no cheers, no flags, just quiet, because Earth had won, not with power, but with preparation. The Zarkari didn't understand fear, and that was their mistake. Because humans do. Humans know fear deeply, but they don't run from it. They learn from it. They use it, and when they must, they become something terrifying. The Zarkari invasion had failed, not because Earth was stronger, but because Earth had been watching, and it was done pretending to be weak. The sky was quiet again. The Zarkari fleet hovered in low orbit, trapped by Earth's gravity net. Their engines hummed, but they could not move. Their systems were powerful, but Earth had outplanned them. Inside the alien command ship, silence hung heavy. They didn't understand. How had a primitive world, with weak weapons and no galactic status, stopped them? The Zarkari were known as cold conquerors. They never lost. Never. But now, their fleet was still. Their scouts were gone, and the humans were watching. Commander Tharon stood at the main control node, staring at Earth through the ship's wide viewing panel. The blue planet looked small, peaceful, harmless. But Tharon no longer believed that. He turned to his officers. "What did we miss?" No one answered. They were all experts. Military minds, scientists, strategists, but none of their models had predicted this. Not one, because humanity didn't follow models. They followed instinct, and instinct is dangerous. A silent alert flashed on the screen. One of their lower decks had lost pressure. Then another, and another dot. Something was coming from inside the ship. Thuron's eyes narrowed. "Boarding party?" he asked. His officer shook his head. No life signs, no signals, nothing. Thorin took a breath. "It's humans, but how?" Back on Earth, inside a hidden command center beneath the Sahara Desert, Alina Cross watched the data feed. She wasn't smiling. She never smiled during a mission, but her voice was steady. "Phase 3 is active," she said. Operators around her nodded. Quiet. Focused. They weren't soldiers. They were hackers, engineers, rogue pilots, people from forgotten files and dead programs. People the world had ignored. Now they were Earth's first space force, and they weren't flying ships. They were inside the enemy, using hacked tech. Human nanodrones had been smuggled. into the ships during the earlier battles. Quiet, invisible, waiting. Now they moved, small as dust, fast as thought. One entered a Zarkari power node and shut it down. Another rewrote a security protocol. A third opened an inner hatch. From the inside, Zarkari guards ran toward the disturbance, weapons drawn, but there was no enemy, only emptiness. Then the lights flickered, gravity reversed, and all at once the systems began to fail, not explode, not burn, collapse. The fleet was being taken apart from the inside. Back in the viewing deck, Theron staggered as the floor shifted under his boots. Evacuate, one officer asked. Tharun shook his head. To where? Earth. They're not savages. They'll capture us. He paused. And they'll learn everything. Because that was the worst part. Humans didn't just survive. They studied. They learned fast. Faster than any species the Zarkari had ever seen. They were building weapons from scraps, hacking systems with guesses, winning battles with tricks, traps, and timing. The Zarkari were machines, but humans were animals. Creative, messy, ruthless, and now they were inside his ship. On Earth. A young woman named Ren was watching everything through a headset. She wasn't military. She was a gamer, a programmer from Seoul, who had been recruited 3 weeks ago through an encrypted online forum. Now, she was controlling one of the drones from her bedroom. No one told her what to do. They just gave her a map and let her play. She smiled, then typed one final command. On board the Zarkari ship, every screen went black. And in their place, one word appeared. Just one. Now. The entire fleet powered down, not destroyed, just shut off, back in orbit. Earth's secret space platforms moved forward. 3 black crafts approached the helpless ships, slowly, like hunters circling wounded prey. They didn't fire, they latched on and began to pull. One by one, the Zarkari ships were dragged from the sky down into the atmosphere, captured, intact. The galaxy had watched Earth as a weak world. They thought it was soft, divided, unarmed. They had no idea Earth had been hiding its teeth. And now, the teeth were showing in a broadcast that echoed across several star systems. An unknown signal was heard. A human voice, female.com. No anger, no fear. To all who see us as prey, we are not prey. We are the storm you didn't prepare for. You don't need to fear humanity until you try to hurt it. Then it's already too late. Galactic listeners paused, and for the first time in years, they had updated their systems. They changed Earth's classification from harmless developing species to hostile, strategic, dangerous. Humanity didn't just defend itself, it changed the rules, and the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way. Again, the sky above Earth looked peaceful, but something had changed. In orbit, 13 Zarkari warships no longer moved. They had no power, no control. They were silent, drifting, held in place by Earth's gravity nets and human technology. For the first time in galactic history, a species once seen as weak had captured a full alien fleet. Not destroyed, captured. In the control room under Greenland, Commander Alina Cross stood alone. Screens around her showed everything. The positions of the Zarkari ships, power levels, human teams on recovery missions, and one blinking signal. A signal from inside the enemy ship. She pressed a button. The message played. A voice came through. Broken, weak. Zarkari, this is High Strategist Theron. I request negotiation. Alina didn't answer. Instead, she played the message on speakers across every human base involved in the operation. Let everyone hear it. The alien voice, once proud, now sounded small. Earth had done what no one thought possible. It made the galaxy listen at a black site, facility hidden in the jungles of South America. Scientists and engineers stood around one of the captured alien pods. They were not military. Most had never seen war, but now they were the front line. Inside the pod was Zachary tech, unknown metals, floating displays, organic machines, devices that responded to thought, not buttons. A young woman named Leela touched one of the controls. She had worked in a factory 2 months ago. Now she was studying alien tech. She spoke quietly. This isn't magic, it's logic. It's just not our logic. Beside her, an old mechanic laughed. Well, let's teach it some Earth logic. And they did. Humans all over the world began working on Zachary systems. Engineers, coders, mechanics, even teenagers. People who had never been allowed in labs were now rewriting alien code in basements, garages, and old bunkers. Because humans didn't wait for permission. They just figured things out. And Earth's real power was that it didn't rely on one system, one government, or one mind. It used everyone in orbit. One of the captured ships slowly powered on. But it wasn't the Zachary doing it. It was human hands. A small group of technicians had managed to connect a rebuilt power core and reroute the ship's energy flow. It lit up, not fully, but enough. Inside the ship, a human pilot took the controls. She was nervous. She was also a former cargo plane pilot who had flown through storms, war zones, and once landed on a frozen lake. Now, she was flying an alien warship. Her voice came through the comms. Feels like a big jellyfish, but I can handle it. Back in the Zachary fleet, panic grew. The aliens weren't just trapped now. They were being studied, picked apart, used. They had no backup, no signal, no plan for this. Because the Zachary never imagined they'd need one. They believed in control, but humans believed in chaos, and chaos, used well, is more dangerous than any weapon. On a moon far from Earth, in a dark meeting chamber, members of the Galactic Council gathered. They were silent, watching. A hologram showed Earth, glowing with new energy points, ship movements, data signals. One counselor spoke. They captured the fleet. Another replied, and they've already started flying it. A third leaned forward. We rated them harmless. There was silence. Then the oldest among them said, we made a mistake. And now they know we're watching. Because Earth had done more than win, it had sent a message without speaking. You think we're weak? Come and find out. Back on Earth, inside a cave in the Himalayas, 2 old scientists opened a steel box that hadn't been touched in 20 years. Inside was a device they had been ordered to forget, a failed experiment. It didn't work, not then, but now, with Zachary tech in their hands, it might. One of them smiled. Let's finish what we started. Because now, Earth wasn't just defending itself. It was building, learning, and preparing for what came next. The war was over, but the real game had just begun, and somewhere in deep space, others were watching. Some were afraid, others were curious, but one thing was now certain. Humanity was no longer a background species. It was a threat, and threats demand attention and attention. Far beyond Earth, beyond the reach of human eyes. A silent signal echoed through the stars. The Zachary were not alone. They were part of a larger alliance, a hidden network of empires that ruled the outer rings of the galaxy. Powerful species, cold, organized, and now that alliance had received a message they never expected. The Zarkari had been defeated, not in battle, in shame, captured, hacked, disarmed by humans. The alliance didn't send diplomats, they sent watchers, stealth. Probes were launched toward Earth, small, fast, invisible to most sensors. But Earth was no longer blind. Above the Arctic, one of the probes passed silently over frozen mountains until it hit a net, not a real net. A signal trap. It triggered a burst of noise, a flash of code, and the probe dropped from the sky like a stone, in a hidden control room buried under the ice. A team of teenagers cheered. They were not soldiers, not even trained, but they were gamers. Hackers, tinkerers, and Earth had asked for help. So they answered. One of them, Jamal, leaned back in his chair. "That's the third one this week," he said. "They're testing us," said May, typing fast. Well, Jamal grinned. Let M test. Because Earth wasn't just learning alien tech, it was getting better at it, and fast. In a clean white lab in New Zealand, engineers powered up the first human-built hybrid engine, part human science, part Zarkari tech. It hummed quietly. No smoke, no wires, just energy. The lead engineer, an older man who once worked in a forgotten space program, smiled. "It's not just a ship engine," he whispered. "It's a message." In orbit, the captured Zarkari ships were now controlled by human crews. Not all systems worked yet. Some ships floated half-dead, held together with wires and hope. But they flew, and they were Earth's now. The Commander Theron sat in a cold human cell deep beneath the ocean floor. He had not spoken in days. He didn't ask for freedom. He didn't beg. He simply watched. He was studying humans, the way they moved, talked, argued. He couldn't understand. They had no order, no unity, no perfect code, and yet they were winning, not just with tools, but with something else. Adaptation. They changed faster than any species he had ever seen. They used what they had. They broke their own rules. They fought dirty, and it worked. In a quiet moment, he spoke to his human guard. "Your chaos," he said. The guard raised an eyebrow. "Is that a compliment or an insult?" Theron didn't answer. On the edge of Earth's solar system, something stirred. A small ripple in space, like a tear, then another, and another dot. Someone, or something, was coming. Back on Earth, Alina Cross read the report. Her eyes moved across the screen slowly. No expression. She had expected it. Defeating the Zarkari was never the end. It was the beginning. She tapped a map. The moon, Mars, Titan. "We need defenses out there," she said. A young officer nodded. "And if we're not ready," Alina looked him in the eye, "then we lose everything." But she didn't believe that, because something had changed on Earth. Borders had blurred. Nations had stepped aside. People were working together, not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to. Fear had done what peace talks never could. It had united humanity in a workshop in Nigeria. A group of mechanics was building a new kind of drone. It looked ugly, assembled from scrap, metal, and broken car parts. But it flew, and it carried a pulse weapon designed by a 12-year-old girl who had once fixed radios for fun all over the world. Strange new teams were forming. Farmers helping engineers, librarians decoding alien signals, teenagers flying simulators to train for space. And still, someone was watching from far away. Not Zarkari. Strangers. They didn't send a message, just a code, encrypted, ancient. But Earth cracked it, and the code said one word: soon. Alina stared at that word. No time, no location, just a promise. Earth. It was no longer reacting. It was preparing. The question wasn't if something else would come. It was when, and this time, Earth would be waiting, with fire in its engines and war in its mind. Asterisk, far from Earth, deep in uncharted space, a dark object drifted between stars. It didn't glow. It didn't hum. It didn't speak. But it was listening. It had no crew, no control room, no voice. It was older than Earth's oldest cities, and it had just marked Earth with a signal, the kind of signal used for threats. Back home, inside a hidden base under Antarctica, Alina Cross read the report. The object was still out of range, too far to study, too fast to catch. But its signal had been traced. It had passed through 8 systems in 10 days, destroying nothing, observing everything, and now it was heading toward the solar system. Alina leaned back in her chair. They're not probing us anymore. They're warning us. Her second-in-command said nothing, because she was right in low Earth orbit. Earth's first hybrid defense ship powered up, half human, half Sarkari tech, controlled by a pilot named Jonas, a former fighter pilot who never followed orders. Until now, he didn't trust the ship, and it didn't trust him. But together, they made it fly. Barely feels like piloting a sleeping dragon, he muttered, as the controls hummed under his hands. But the ship obeyed. It had to, because something was coming, and Earth needed eyes in space. Jonas's mission was simple: fly to Saturn's orbit and track the unknown object. He didn't ask what would happen if it got too close. He didn't need to. Back on Earth, people were changing, not just scientists and soldiers. Everyone. Old rivalries faded. New programs launched. Schools began teaching alien code. Children in Brazil flew drone simulations after lunch. Teens in Kenya printed parts for power cells using hacked alien blueprints. No one told them to do it. They just did, because deep down, everyone could feel it. The peace wouldn't last. It never did. In an abandoned mine in Russia, a team of volunteers worked without orders. Their goal: turn the tunnels into underground shelters. Not for weapons, for people. No leaders, no government, just humans helping humans. It wasn't about nations anymore. It was about survival and unity, even if it was temporary, in space. Jonas's ship reached Saturn. He flew past its rings, like smoke through fire. His sensors blinked. There it was, the object, not large, not glowing, not armed, but something was wrong. The closer he got, the more his instruments failed. Radar, dead. Visual feed, static. Artificial gravity, gone. He tightened his grip. "I don't like this," he said out loud. No one responded. Then, without warning, the object turned. Not physically, but something shifted, and Jonas felt it, like eyes staring into his mind. He jerked the ship back. Too late. His screen went black, and in that darkness, something whispered. Not in sound. In thought, he saw images. Planets in flames, fleets torn apart, worlds erased. He gasped, pulled the emergency return code, and the ship jumped, forced back into human control range. He woke up coughing in the pilot bay, covered in sweat. "I saw them," he said. "They don't talk. They don't ask. They just erase." The techs around him froze. What did they erase? One asked. "Everything," Jonas replied. They cleaned the board. Start over. He wasn't sure how he knew that, but he was sure it was true. The enemy wasn't coming to fight. They were coming to reset. And Earth was in the way, at a secure site in Iceland. Alina Cross met with a council of scientists, engineers, and rogue AI designers. Her voice was firm. We're not building ships anymore. We're building a shield. A global shield. They said it couldn't be done. She nodded. Then make it possible. And they started. On the moon, a mining team uncovered something strange. A signal beacon. Old and alien. Buried beneath the rock. It wasn't ZAR. Kerry, it was older. Much older. One of the scientists scanned it and frowned. This isn't a beacon, she said. It's a tombstone. The galaxy wasn't full of empires. It was full of warnings. Earth had only just arrived, but the game was already in play, and the pieces were ancient, still moving, still watching, still waiting as the stars shifted. The object kept drifting closer. No weapons, no crew, no heat, but wherever it passed, silence followed. Silence followed. The stars above Earth were quiet, but something had changed. Every satellite, every telescope, every human-made eye in the sky now pointed in the same direction, toward the dark object drifting past. Neptune. It didn't stop. It didn't speak. It just kept moving. The world below held its breath, in an underground chamber beneath the Pacific Ocean. Alina Cross met with Earth's United Command Council. Representatives from every continent sat at the long table. There was no anger in the room, no politics, just silence. Alina stood. She tapped her tablet. A 3D map showed Earth's new defense systems, ships, satellites, ground cannons, and the half-finished shield net stretching from the moon to low Earth orbit. It's not enough, she said. One of the generals nodded. Then we buy time. Above them, 20 hybrid ships stood ready. Pilots had trained for weeks. Most had never even seen space before. But that didn't matter. They were human, and humans didn't back down. Jonas sat in his cockpit again. He stared into the dark ahead. He didn't want to go back near that thing, but he knew he would. And so, with the others, a voice crackled in his ear. It was Alina. Don't stop it, she said. Just slow it down. Jonas didn't answer. He launched into the black, followed by 20 ships. They weren't built for beauty. They looked like junk. Old parts, broken armor, mismatched tech. But they flew, and they flew fast as the object passed Uranus. The human ships reached its edge. Jonas opened the channel. This is Earth. Identify yourself. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Then, the lights inside his ship flickered, and it spoke, not in words. In memories, Jonas saw burning planets, ash raining from skies, civilizations crushed without warning, without cause. He saw the Zarkari once, trying to fight it, and failing. He saw messages left in dead, languages across frozen moons, and one phrase repeated over and over in every image. The cleaners are coming. Jonas gripped the controls. They're not here to invade, he whispered. They're here to erase us. He turned back to Earth, but the object didn't. It kept moving slowly now. Maybe curious, maybe waiting back on Earth. Strange things began to happen. Some people heard whispers in their dreams. Some machines turned on by themselves. Children began drawing symbols no one taught them, and the object kept watching. It didn't fire. It didn't land. It just hovered near Pluto, as if deciding. And then something incredible happened. The tombstone found on the moon began to hum all over the world. Ancient ruins glowed, not human ruins, not Zar, Kerry, older, hidden, forgotten, and then they sent a signal, not to space dot, to the object. 3 tones, just 3, and the object stopped. It paused. It turned slightly, and then it began to move away, slow, silent, cold, leaving Earth behind. No battle, no words, no death, just a decision. Earth had been seen, judged, spared. No one knew. Alina watched from the command screen. She didn't smile. She didn't relax. She simply whispered, "We're not safe. We're just next." But the world didn't fall into panic, because Earth had changed. It had faced something older than war, and it had survived, not by weapons alone, but by standing. Together in a scrapyard in India, children looked up at the stars and began building something new in a lab in Canada. An old physicist laughed through tears, realizing alien math now made perfect sense. In Brazil, a team of students launched the first school-built satellite using human Zakari tech, and in space, Jonas looked back at Earth. Blue, bright, alive. He knew others would come. The galaxy was listening now, and Earth was no longer a forgotten corner. It was a name, a force, a species no longer ranked harmless. They had been tested, and they were still here, and now the stars would remember. Humanity fights back.